Faces hidden, location concealed. Only then would these Hong Kong entrepreneurs agree to be filmed. They've set up an online shopping service which supports the pro-democracy movement. It employs protesters who've been arrested or kicked out of their homes for their part in the demonstrations.
We want to provide for the teenagers and everyone that is involved in this movement. They should be proud of what they are doing. We are proud of them and we will support them with a career.
Despite being a world away from the front lines, initiatives like this work in fear. The founders, or volunteers, say being identified could jeopardise their careers, perhaps even their safety. But with a newborn son, logistics manager Caleb says getting caught up in violent protests isn't an option.
Personally, I don't have the courage to go on the front lines and fight with them. So I fell into this backup role and started this company and let them know that they are not left behind and the Hong Kong people are supporting them.
With this scheme, Caleb's among the growing ranks of Hong Kongers, finding inventive ways to support the pro-democracy cause. When you picture the Hong Kong protests, warehouses like this one won't be the first thing that springs to mind. But far from the front lines, it's behind-the-scenes initiatives like this one that are quietly and collectively sustaining this movement. Caleb says he hopes one day he and his team won't have to hide their identities and will feel safe to proudly admit the role they've played.
We have Glacier Kwong joining us in the studio. She's a member of the Hong Kong activist group Keyboard Frontline. So Glacier, with that video report we just saw, you have these volunteers not on the front lines because they feel like they can't necessarily participate in the protests all the time. Is there still a danger to the work they're doing?
Yes, of course, there are dangers for them as not being very involved in the front line as well, because if they are found out or their identities being revealed, they will get themselves into trouble. I have friends who do similar work in Hong Kong, and he was targeted and his personal particulars are being put online and his shop was being harassed and people are saying that they will boycott him and really gave him a hard time.
So somebody you know got doxxed, essentially?
Yeah, because of the work that he's trying to do on his shop to support the movement. So if you're saying you're going to hire people from the front line, then you actually exposing yourself to troubles in that sense.
I think it's very interesting that you have people of different ages contributing in different ways and people with different skills, whether some of the musicians performing music. Each person has a role. Tell me about your role and your organization.
My role, because I'm now based in Germany, so I do a bit of lobbying, trying to get the narrative about the Hong Kong movement out there for the others. And my group actually focuses on technology and internet-related things. So we try to give advice to the activists on how do you encrypt your device, how do you keep your information safe in terms of a digital sense. And we are also trying to formulate a report talking about the surveillance attempt of China in Hong Kong, China, and even the world.
Do you think activists are improving in terms of their digital hygiene and protecting themselves?
Yes, of course. We see an improving trend in general when compared like 5 years ago in the umbrella revolution. People don't really know if they need to use end-to-end encryption and they can't talk about sensitive things openly online. But now we see that people are more aware of, okay, certain things we cannot say in an open area on the internet, but we can do it via end-to-end encryption. And sometimes people will come to ask, and how do I keep my information safe? So we see an increase of awareness in this sense.
Now, I want to step back a little bit and talk about short-term versus long-term. Short-term, Beijing's strategy, or rather the Hong Kong police force's strategy, is to lob as much tear gas as possible. It doesn't seem to be working based on the turnout this weekend, for example. But long-term, Beijing has said that it wants to increase and roll out patriotic education in the school system and to also decrease teaching of critical thinking skills in classrooms. Do you think they will prevail, that the next generation is going to be more nationalistic?
I think actually it won't work because we can see from the past experience in 2012, the government tried to launch a national education in Hong Kong and they failed, but then they separated the whole curriculum and then implemented part by part in Hong Kong. But still, the whole generation of youngsters actually very against the rule of the Chinese regime. So we can see that doesn't work. And I think As long as we keep talking about these kind of so-called critical thinking or criticism about the Hong Kong and the Chinese government, I don't think they would succeed in terms of brainwashing the next generation, because we have one solid generation that is so against the rule of China and Hong Kong government in that sense.
And I think this is the question that everybody must ask you all the time, but how do you think this is all going to end?
I have no idea, to be honest. I don't see the Hong Kong regime or the Chinese regime gonna fall in like a tip of the finger, but I think in the long term, dictatorship will eventually fall, and we're counting on that. So even though we don't see any actual hope of succeeding at this moment, we know we're doing the right thing and we're going to continue.
Glacier, Kwong, thank you.